Welcome to Dreams of Disclosure. Tonight, we continue our journey into the quiet unknown, a series designed to calm your mind and carry you into restful slumber. We turn our attention to one of the most enduring mysteries of the modern age, a story not of fear, but of profound wonder. The events near Roswell, New Mexico, in the summer of 1947. Let us leave behind the noise of debate and conspiracy. Let us travel back to a simpler time, under a vast desert sky, where something extraordinary briefly touched our world. Settle in, breathe deeply, and let the gentle cadence of this story lull you into a state of peaceful curiosity and, finally, into deep, restorative sleep. Before the world learned its name, the desert surrounding Roswell was a sea of silence. It was a place where time itself seemed to slow, measured not by clocks, but by the slow crawl of shadows across the mesas, the patient arc of the sun, and the whisper of the wind through dry grasses and sage. The air smelled of hot earth, of dust, of the sweet, resinous scent of pinyon pine carried on a rare breeze. In the summer of 1947, the town of Roswell was a quiet on the map, a community where life moved with the steady, predictable rhythm of agricultural life. It was a place of familiar faces, of conversations shared over coffee at the local diner, of knowing the weather by the feel of the air. The sky was its most constant companion, an endless, brilliant blue by day, and a breathtaking, star-flecked velvet by night. 75 miles northwest of this quiet town lay the Foster Ranch, a sprawling expanse of land that seemed to embrace the very heart of the desert's solitude. And here lived a man named William Mac Brazel. Mac was a rancher, a man whose life was etched into the very landscape he tended. His hands were calloused from work, his eyes perpetually squinted from scanning the horizon. He knew the moods of his cattle, the patterns of the weather, and every inch of his dusty, sun-baked domain. The sky was his clock, the land his calendar. On the night of July 2nd, the desert held its breath. The usual chorus of crickets was absent. The air was preternaturally still, heavy and dry. The distant thunderheads, which often promised rain but delivered only lightning, flickered silently on the far horizon. Sometime deep in the heart of that silent night, Mac was roused from his sleep. It was not a loud sound, but a strange one. A sharp, cracking noise that seemed to tear through the fabric of the silence. It had a metallic resonance to it, a dissonant chord that vibrated more in the bones than in the ears. And then, as quickly as it came, it was gone. The silence that returned was deeper, more profound than before. Mac, a practical man, attributed it to the desert's strange temperament. He turned over, pulled his rough blanket closer, and surrendered once more to sleep, the strange sound already fading into the edges of a dream. The dawn broke with a fierce, clean light. The sun rose, a blazing coin in a cloudless sky, spilling liquid gold over the plains. Mac, as was his ritual, saddled his horse and rode out. The heat was already gathering, rising in shimmering waves from the earth. The world was quiet, peaceful. But as he rode, a subtle wrongness pricked at his senses. The air, usually carrying the scents of sage and dry earth, held a new, unfamiliar trace. A smell like ozone after a storm, mixed with something acrid and metallic. It was a scent that did not belong. His horse grew skittish as they approached a wide depression in the land. And then Mac Brazel saw it. His mind, accustomed to the familiar shapes of rocks, cattle, and scrub brush, struggled to process the scene before him. Stretching across a vast area of the pasture was a debris field unlike anything he had ever encountered. It was not the wreckage of a plane or a fallen weather balloon. This was something else entirely. He dismounted slowly, his boots crunching on the brittle grass. He knelt, his hand reaching out to touch the impossible. Scattered everywhere were pieces of a material that seemed to defy logic. There were shreds of a foil-like substance, incredibly thin and light, that shimmered with a strange, pearlescent sheen in the sunlight. When he tried to crumple a piece in his fist, it did not crease or tear. Instead, it unfolded itself, smoothing back into its original shape as if it possessed a memory of its own. Other fragments were different. A dark, lightweight material, as strong as metal but flexible like plastic. It felt strangely cool to the touch, even under the relentless New Mexico sun. And on these pieces he saw markings. They were not letters, not numbers, but intricate, geometric symbols, elegantly etched into the material itself. They resembled hieroglyphics from a civilization unknown to any human history. Mac stood in the center of that silent, scattered field for a long time, his hat tipped back, his mind reeling. The sheer strangeness of it was overwhelming. There were no wires, no rivets, no screws, no signs of any combustion engine or propulsion system. This was not a construction. It was a fabrication from another reality. A deep, instinctual certainty settled in his bones. Something had come down here, something that did not belong to this world. Gathering a few of the more curious pieces, he carefully placed them in his saddlebag. The ride back to the ranch house was long and quiet. His thoughts a turbulent river beneath a calm exterior. The desert, he felt, had exhaled a secret, and he was the only one there to hear it. That evening, he sat on his porch as the sun bled across the sky, painting it in hues of orange, purple, and deep rose. The familiar landscape was now alien, charged with a new and unsettling energy. In the gathering dusk, he felt the weight of the unknown pressing in. The pieces of strange metal lay inside his home, silent and accusatory. The desert night, usually a comfort, now felt like a vast, watchful presence. And high above, the stars twinkled coldly, holding their secrets close. The news, as it always does in small, isolated communities, began to travel. It moved not like a wildfire, but like a slow, creeping fog, through hushed conversations over fence lines, in muttered asides at the general store, in the curious glances exchanged between neighbors. Mac Brazel, a man not given to fancy or exaggeration, had found something strange out on the ranch. Very strange. At first, the reactions were a mixture of skepticism and mild curiosity. A downed weather device? An experimental army balloon? But as Mac showed the fragments to a few trusted individuals, the local sheriff, George Wilcox, among them, the skepticism began to waver, replaced by a growing, uneasy wonder. The sheriff, a pragmatic man who had seen most of what life in Chavez County had to offer, handled the pieces with a furrowed brow. He flexed the foil, ran his fingers over the unreadable symbols, and felt the unnatural coolness of the material. This was no weather balloon. This was something for which he had no frame of reference. The decision was made to contact the authorities at the Roswell Army Airfield, the home of the 509th Bomb Group, the only atomic bomb group in the world. It was the logical step, but it was a step that would pull the quiet desert mystery into the bright, unforgiving light of official scrutiny. Meanwhile, other whispers began to circulate. A construction foreman working some distance from the Foster Ranch reported that his crew had seen a bright, fiery object streaking across the sky on the night of July 2nd. It moved, he said, with a speed and trajectory that was utterly unnatural. Others spoke of a series of low, rumbling explosions that shook the very ground, vibrations that seemed to come from deep within the earth itself. The desert, once a place of open, empty silence, now seemed to be whispering from every canyon and arroyo. The story was beginning to grow, to take on a life of its own, fed by half-heard sounds and glimpsed lights. The people of Roswell, grounded and sensible, found themselves caught between their inherent distrust of the extraordinary and the compelling evidence that something extraordinary had, indeed, occurred. It was in this atmosphere of simmering curiosity and low-grade excitement that the military made its entrance. The arrival of the army jeeps, the crisp uniforms, the officious tones, it all served to heighten the sense of occasion. The mystery was no longer just Mac Brazel's. It was becoming Roswell's. The morning sun had not yet crested the horizon when Major Jesse Marcel received his orders. A rancher had found unusual debris. The local sheriff was involved. As the intelligence officer for the 509th, it was his duty to investigate. Marcel was a thoughtful, capable man. An experienced pilot and a dedicated officer, he was not prone to leaps of imagination. He was a man of facts, of data, of careful observation. He drove out to the Foster Ranch with a mind open to logical explanations, a secret military project, a Soviet spy device, anything within the realm of known possibility. The meeting with Mac Brazel was brief and straightforward. The rancher, a man of few words, simply led him to the site. And as they rode, Marcel could sense a change in the rancher's demeanor, a mixture of reluctance and a deep, unshakable certainty. When they arrived at the debris field, Major Jesse Marcel's professional composure was tested. He walked through the scattered wreckage, his trained eye taking in every detail. He picked up the foil-like material. He bent it, twisted it, and watched, astonished, as it returned to its original form without a single crease. He examined the darker, beam-like pieces, noting their incredible strength-to-weight ratio. He traced the strange, flower-like symbols with his gloved finger. This was the moment the mystery deepened from a local curiosity to a matter of profound significance. Standing there in the desert silence, with the evidence in his hands, Marcel knew, with the same certainty that had gripped Mac Brazel, that this was like nothing on earth. This was not a balloon, not a plane, not anything from the arsenal of any nation. The materials, the construction, the symbols, all of it spoke of a technology vastly beyond human understanding. With meticulous care, he and his team began to collect the fragments. They filled crates and bags, gathering every last piece they could find. The work was done in a respectful, almost reverent silence. The banter typical of soldiers on a task was absent. They were handling something sacred. Before returning to the base, Marcel made a detour to his own home. He wanted to see this wonder through fresh, unjaded eyes. He woke his young son, Jesse Jr., and showed him a piece of the strange debris. The boy's eyes widened with awe as he handled the material, trying to bend it, marveling at its properties. "It's like something from a comic book," he whispered. And in that moment, for both father and son, the world felt suddenly larger, filled with more magic and mystery than they had ever imagined. That detour was a brief, human interlude in a story that was rapidly becoming institutional. When Marcel finally returned to the Roswell Army airfield, the crates of debris were secured. He began drafting his report, searching for words that could adequately describe the indescribable. He knew, with a sinking feeling, that his words would likely never be enough. The genie was out of the bottle, and the forces of officialdom were already moving to push it back in. The day was July 8, 1947. The air in Roswell was thick with heat and speculation. The rumors had reached a fever pitch. Something had crashed. The army was involved. People had seen strange things. It was in this climate that the Public Information Office at the Roswell Army Airfield issued a press release. It was short, direct, and utterly sensational. It stated that the many rumors regarding a flying disc had become a reality. The intelligence office of the 509th Bomb Group had, in cooperation with a local rancher and the sheriff's office, come into possession of a flying disc. The news exploded. The Roswell Daily Record's headline screamed, "ROF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region." Wire services picked up the story, and it began to flash across the nation. The quiet desert town was suddenly the center of the universe. Phones rang incessantly. Reporters descended. The world was watching. For a few brief hours, it seemed as if the truth was going to be laid bare. The excitement in Roswell was palpable. People gathered in groups, talking animatedly, their faces alight with the thrill of the unknown. They had been right. There was something out there. The army had confirmed it. But the celebration was short-lived. The flash of truth was about to be eclipsed by a long, deep shadow. The order came from a higher command, from a place far removed from the dust and wonder of the New Mexico desert. The narrative had to be controlled. The story of the flying disc was a mistake, an embarrassment. A new, more palatable truth had to be constructed. With stunning speed, a new press conference was arranged, this time at the Fort Worth Army Airfield in Texas, where some of the debris had been flown. The commanding general there presented to the press a collection of crumpled foil and rubber, the remains of a common, radar-tracking weather balloon. He explained, with an air of patient condescension, that the rancher and the officers in Roswell had simply misidentified this mundane object. To cement this new story, they brought in Major Jesse Marcel. He was made to pose for photographs with the weather balloon debris, holding up the shattered pieces of foil, a forced, uncomfortable smile on his face. It was a humiliating, surreal moment. He was holding a prop, participating in a carefully staged lie, while the real, inexplicable evidence was being whisked away to places unknown. The headlines changed. The story was retracted. The flying saucer became a weather balloon. The excitement in Roswell curdled into confusion, then into a kind of weary resignation. The army had spoken. The matter was closed. But for those who had been there, for those who had held the real wreckage in their hands, the official explanation was a flimsy curtain drawn over a profound reality. Mac Brazel, after a second, more intense visit from military officials, grew quiet and withdrawn, his story now sanitized to fit the new narrative. He became a reluctant participant in the cover-up, a man who had seen too much and was now being told to forget. His testimony reignited the mystery, transforming Roswell from a forgotten footnote into the holy grail of UFO lore. The U.S. government, under increasing pressure, would issue further reports in the 1990s, claiming the wreckage was from a top-secret nuclear test surveillance balloon from Project Mogul. But for many, this was just another layer of the cover-up, a more complex and sophisticated version of the original weather balloon story. The core inconsistency remained. The descriptions given by Brazel and Marcel did not match the components of a Mogul balloon train. The legacy of Roswell is not a single proven fact. It is a rift in our perception of reality. It is the enduring question: what did Mac Brazel really find in that sheep pasture? What did Jesse Marcel hold in his hands? The official story asks us to believe in a series of mistakes and misidentifications. The whispered truth asks us to believe that we are not alone in the cosmos. The true power of Roswell lies in that persistent, unanswerable question. It invites us to look up at the night sky not with fear, but with a sense of wonder. It reminds us that the universe is vast, ancient, and filled with mysteries we have only begun to fathom. The silence that followed the crash is perhaps the most eloquent part of the story, a silence that speaks volumes about our fear of the unknown and our deep, abiding hope that we are part of something greater. As your mind grows soft and heavy with sleep, let us leave the deserts of New Mexico and drift on the gentle currents of other mysteries. All around the world, in quiet corners and lonely places, similar stories have been whispered. They are not loud, headline-grabbing events, but subtle, personal encounters that leave behind only a sense of profound wonder. Let these tales be the soft, background hum that carries you into dreams. The Shepherd of the Highlands. In the misty glens of Scotland, an old shepherd named Ewan once tended his flock under a sky dense with stars. One evening, he saw a light, not a star, but a soft, pulsating orb that descended silently into a nearby valley. He felt no fear, only a deep, abiding peace. When he investigated at dawn, he found nothing but a perfect circle of dew-kissed grass, untouched by any animal or man. He often said the memory of that light warmed him on the coldest of nights. The lighthouse keeper's vigil. On a rocky, windswept coast in Maine, a solitary lighthouse keeper named Arthur reported seeing strange, shimmering lights dancing just above the waves during a fierce winter storm. They moved with an intelligence that defied the gale-force winds, weaving patterns in the air before vanishing into the tempest. He swore they guided a lost fishing trawler to safety that night, a secret he carried with him to his grave. The child's drawing. In a small village in the Japanese countryside, a young girl, who had never shown particular artistic talent, began drawing intricate, spiraling galaxies and strange, gentle-faced beings. She told her parents she had dream visitors who showed her the music of the stars. The drawings, filled with a serene beauty, were kept by the family, a quiet testament to a child's innocent encounter with the infinite. The silent symphony of the plains. In the vast, flat expanses of the American Midwest, a farmer once woke to find a perfect, complex pattern of swirling lines pressed into his wheat field. There were no tracks leading to or from the design, no signs of human intervention. He stood at the edge of the field as the sun rose, feeling as if he were looking at a single, frozen note from a silent symphony played for an audience of one. These stories, and countless others like them, form a constellation of mysteries across our world. They are gentle reminders that the unknown is not something to be feared, but to be embraced with a quiet and open heart. They are lullabies for the curious soul, suggesting that the universe is not cold and empty, but alive with possibilities beyond our wildest dreams. So now let your breathing slow. Let your thoughts dissolve like sugar in water. Feel the weight of your body sinking into your bed, supported and safe. The stories are over, the mysteries are resting. All that is left is the gentle, rhythmic sound of your own heart, a steady drumbeat in the quiet night. The stars outside your window are watching over you. The universe is vast, and you are a beloved part of it. Sleep now, sleep deeply, and dream of peaceful, starlit skies.